Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a simple truth: the life you dream of, the success you crave, the future you've envisioned. It's not waiting for the perfect time. It's not waiting for more resources. It's not waiting for someone to come rescue you. It's waiting for one thing for you: to finally stop making excuses. Success begins where excuses end. And the moment you understand this, your whole life changes. Excuses are one of the most dangerous habits we allow ourselves to fall into because they feel so harmless in the moment, yet they rob us of everything we say we want in life. Think about it. How many times have you had a dream in your heart, a goal in your mind, or even just a small task that you knew would move you forward, and instead of acting on it, you gave yourself an excuse? You said, "I'll do it tomorrow." You said, "I don't have the time." You said, "I'm not ready yet." And in that moment, you probably felt justified. You felt safe. You felt like you had a good reason for putting it off. But the truth is, every excuse you've ever made has stolen something from you. Excuses don't just delay progress, they completely derail it. They take the energy you could be investing in growth and redirect it towards stagnation. They don't just hold you back for a moment, they trap you in a pattern that can last weeks, months, or even years. Here's what you must understand: excuses are clever liars. They disguise themselves as logic. They whisper in your ear, "You need more information before you start." Or, "You should wait for the right time." They make you believe you're being smart by hesitating, when really all you're doing is surrendering your future to hesitation. And the problem with hesitation is that it quickly turns into habit. One small excuse today becomes another tomorrow, and then another the next day, until you've built an entire lifestyle around avoiding the very actions that could change your life. Let's be brutally honest here. Every time you make an excuse, you are prioritizing comfort over progress. You are choosing the short-term relief of not facing discomfort instead of the long-term reward of success. It feels easier to say, "I'll do it later," than to push through and get it done now. It feels easier to say, "I don't know how," than to go out and learn. It feels easier to say, "I'm too tired," than to rise up and take responsibility. But every single one of those decisions comes with a price. And that price is momentum. That price is growth. That price is your future self looking back, wishing you had pushed harder when it mattered most. Picture this for a moment. Two people start with the same dream, the same goal, the same opportunity. One of them decides to push forward, even when they don't feel ready. They make mistakes, they stumble, they fail, but they keep showing up. Every day, little by little, they grow. A year later, they've made progress. They've built habits. They've created momentum. Now, opportunities start coming their way. People begin to notice their dedication, and the future they once imagined starts becoming reality. Meanwhile, the other person chooses excuses. They say, "I'll wait until I have more time." They say, "I'll start when life settles down." They say, "I'm not ready yet." And a year later, they are still standing in the exact same place, holding on to the same dream, except now they carry the added weight of regret. What made the difference? Not intelligence, not resources, not talent. The difference was one person ended their excuses, and the other let excuses end their progress. The most dangerous thing about excuses is that they often sound reasonable. But reasonable will not create greatness. Reasonable will not change your life. Reasonable will keep you average, and you weren't born to be average. You were born with the potential to achieve something extraordinary. And that potential can only be realized when you decide that excuses are no longer welcome in your vocabulary. The people who rise in this world, the ones who build legacies, the ones who inspire generations, are not the people who had fewer excuses available to them. They are the people who had the same excuses but chose not to use them. If you truly want to succeed, you must start recognizing excuses as thieves. They steal your time, they steal your discipline, they steal your focus, and they steal your life. Every time you hear yourself saying, "I can't," you need to pause and realize what you're really saying is, "I won't." Every time you say, "I don't have time," what you're really saying is, "It's not a priority." Every time you say, "I'm not ready," what you're really saying is, "I'm too scared to begin." And when you shine that kind of light on your excuses, you strip them of their power. Because here's the truth: you will never feel perfectly ready, you will never have unlimited time, and you will never find conditions that are flawless. Success is not about waiting for the stars to align. Success is about moving forward despite the chaos, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty. Success begins in the very moment you stop giving excuses power over your destiny. Ownership is the foundation of all success. If excuses are the poison, ownership is the antidote. Nothing changes until you look in the mirror and decide that your life, your choices, your results are 100% your responsibility. That's the moment you step out of being a victim of your circumstances and step into being the creator of your destiny. The truth is, life will always hand you challenges. Things will happen that are unfair, unexpected, and outside of your control. But while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. Ownership is about reclaiming that power. It's about saying, no matter what comes my way, I am in charge of my effort, my attitude, and my actions. So many people spend their lives waiting for someone else to fix their problems, waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for a miracle. But waiting is just another form of excuse making. Ownership means you stop waiting and you start working. It means you stop pointing fingers and you start pointing forward. It means you stop saying, it's their fault, or it's because of this situation, and you start saying, it's my responsibility to rise. That mindset shift alone separates winners from everyone else. Think about it, every great leader, every innovator, every success story you've ever admired has one thing in common. They owned their journey. They didn't sit around blaming their upbringing, their environment, or their setbacks. They said, yes, those things happen, but they do not define me. I define me. That's what ownership is, taking full accountability for where you are and where you're going. When you live in ownership, you no longer see problems as dead ends. You see them as challenges you have the power to solve. Here's the harsh reality. As long as you keep blaming circumstances or people, you give away your power to change. When you say, I can't succeed because of my boss, my parents, my lack of money, my lack of time, what you're really doing is handing over the keys to your future. Ownership is about taking those keys back and saying, I drive this vehicle. I decide where it goes. I am responsible for how far it travels. Let me paint you a picture. Two people lose their jobs. One of them says, this is terrible. I can't believe they did this to me. Life isn't fair. I'll never catch a break. They sink deeper into frustration, maybe even bitterness, and months later they are still stuck. The other person says, this isn't what I wanted, but it's on me to figure out my next step. I'll take ownership. I'll build a new skill. I'll search for new opportunities. I'll hustle until something happens. Months later, that person is not only employed, they're often in a better position than before. Same situation. Different response. Ownership created progress. Blame created paralysis. Here's the good news. Ownership is not a trait you're either born with or not. It's a decision. It's a choice you can make at any moment of your life. The moment you decide, I am responsible for my growth, you stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. The moment you decide, I am responsible for my happiness, you stop relying on other people to make you feel fulfilled. The moment you decide, I am responsible for my success, you stop treating setbacks as the end of the road and start treating them as training for the next level. Yes, ownership is hard. It means looking yourself in the eye and admitting that the reason you're not where you want to be is not because of anyone else, but because of the choices you've made. That's tough to swallow. But once you swallow it, once you embrace it, you unlock incredible power. Because if your choices created your current reality, then new choices can create a new one. That realization is liberating. It means your future is not determined by your past. It's determined by what you decide to own right now. Ownership turns victims into victors. It turns obstacles into opportunities. It turns average into excellence. Every time you choose ownership, you build strength. Every time you refuse to blame, you grow resilience. Every time you take responsibility, you move closer to the life you say you want. Success is never about luck. It's about living in full ownership, moment by moment, decision by decision, no matter how tough the circumstances get. One of the most transformative skills you can develop on your journey to success is learning how to reframe your excuses. You see, excuses by themselves are not just obstacles, they are stories you've told yourself so many times that they've become your truth. The good news is that if you can tell yourself a limiting story, you can also rewrite it into an empowering one. Every excuse has an opposite, every limitation has a possibility, and every barrier can be turned into a stepping stone if you choose to reframe it. Think about the excuses we use most often. I don't have time. That's one of the biggest lies people repeat to themselves every day. The truth is, you have the same 24 hours as every person who has ever built a business. written a book, changed the world, or created a legacy, the difference isn't the amount of time, it's the priorities. Instead of saying, I don't have time, what if you asked, how can I make time for what matters most? That simple reframe turns a statement of limitation into a question of possibility. It moves you out of helplessness and into problem solving. Another common excuse is, I don't know how. And it sounds so logical, doesn't it? If you don't know how to do something, then maybe you can't move forward. But the truth is, everything you've ever learned in your life, you once didn't know how to do. You didn't know how to walk, but you figured it out. You didn't know how to read, but you figured it out. You didn't know how to ride a bike, but you figured it out. I don't know how should never be the end of your story. Reframe it into, I don't know how yet, but I'm willing to learn. That single word, yet, is powerful because it transforms a dead end into a pathway. It tells your brain that knowledge and skills are available to you if you're willing to pursue them. Then there's the excuse, I'm not ready. This one keeps more people stuck than almost any other. We wait for the right conditions, the right timing, the right resources. We tell ourselves, when I feel ready, I'll finally take the leap. But here's the truth. No one ever feels fully ready. The people you admire didn't wait until every light was green before they started driving toward their dreams. They got on the road and figured it out along the way. Instead of saying, I'm not ready, reframe it into, I'll never feel completely ready, but I can start now with what I have. That's the mindset that builds momentum. Excuses often come from fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. But reframing gives you the power to shift fear into fuel. Instead of saying, what if I fail? Ask, what if I succeed? Instead of saying, what if they laugh at me? Ask, what if I inspire them? Instead of saying, what if I'm not good enough? Ask, what if I grow into someone better through this process? That reframe doesn't eliminate fear, but it gives you a reason to move forward anyway. Reframing excuses is about training your mind to stop seeing barriers and start seeing bridges. It's about catching the old story before it takes root and replacing it with a new one that empowers you to act. Imagine if every time you heard yourself say, I can't, you changed it to, how can I? Imagine if every time you said, it's too hard, you changed it to, this is worth it. Imagine if every time you said, I'll do it later, you changed it to, I start today. Can you see how different your life would look if those became your default responses? Here's the powerful thing about reframing. Once you practice it enough, it becomes natural. At first, your excuses will feel automatic, but over time, your new empowering responses will become automatic too. Instead of retreating into fear, you'll advance with courage. Instead of shrinking from challenges, you'll embrace them as opportunities. Instead of being limited by your old beliefs, you'll be liberated by new ones. The most successful people in the world are not the ones who never feel doubt or never face obstacles. They are the ones who refuse to let excuses dictate their actions. They catch the excuse, reframe it, and move forward. That's the discipline that separates achievers from dreamers. It's not that achievers never hear the voice of excuse. It's that they've trained themselves to answer it with a stronger voice of possibility. So the next time you hear yourself making an excuse, stop. Don't let it run unchecked. Don't let it decide your fate. Pause, challenge it, and reframe it. Turn the limitation into a question. Turn the fear into fuel. Turn the excuse into action. Because success isn't about never having excuses. It's about mastering the art of transforming them into power. One of the greatest lies people believe on their journey to success is that they need to be perfect before they begin. They think they need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect resources, and the perfect level of confidence before they can take action. And because they're waiting for perfection, they never actually start. But here's the truth you must understand. Success does not belong to the perfect. It belongs to the persistent. It belongs to the people who are willing to take imperfect, messy, uncertain action again and again until they grow into the person who can achieve their vision. You will never have all the answers before you begin. You will never eliminate every risk. You will never silence every doubt. And if you're waiting for the moment when everything feels just right, you'll wait forever. The people who rise in this world are not the ones who waited for perfect conditions. They are the ones who stepped forward despite imperfection. They learned on the way. They adjusted as they moved. They grew by doing. Think about the first time you tried anything new. The first time you learned to drive, you weren't smooth, you weren't confident, And you certainly weren't perfect, but you got behind the wheel anyway, and through practice, you became skilled. The first time you spoke in public, your hands shook, your voice cracked, and your heart raced. But the more you did it, the better you became. That's how growth works. Action precedes mastery. The people who demand perfection before they move are the ones who stay stuck, while the people who are willing to be imperfect are the ones who succeed. So many dreams are buried in the graveyard of perfectionism. So many people carry incredible ideas, talents, and gifts that the world will never see because they were too afraid of not being good enough when they started. But let me tell you something powerful. You don't have to be great to begin, but you do have to begin to be great. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once inexperienced. Every success story started with someone saying, "I don't know everything yet, but I'll take the first step anyway." Action creates clarity. So many people sit around overthinking, analyzing every angle, waiting to know exactly how everything will play out. But clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from moving. When you act, even imperfectly, you learn what works and what doesn't. You discover strengths you didn't know you had. You uncover resources you didn't realize were available. You build confidence not by waiting for it, but by earning it through doing. Confidence is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite for it. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people who both want to start a business. One says, "I need to have the perfect plan. I need to research every detail. I need to make sure there's zero chance of failure." They spend months, maybe even years, planning, adjusting, analyzing, and never launch. The other person says, "I don't have it all figured out, but I'll start with what I know and I'll learn the rest along the way." They make mistakes, they stumble, but every mistake becomes feedback. Every stumble becomes a lesson. And soon that person has a functioning business while the first person is still stuck at the starting line. What made the difference? Not intelligence, not resources, action. One moved forward, the other stood still. Perfection is a trap because it convinces you that standing still is safer than moving forward imperfectly. But the truth is, standing still is the most dangerous choice of all. Time is passing whether you act or not. Opportunities are moving by whether you seize them or not. The world doesn't reward the person who plans forever, it rewards the person who dares to act. The moment you let go of perfection and embrace progress, your life changes. When you stop asking, "Is this flawless?" and start asking, "Does this move me forward?" you unlock momentum. Momentum matters more than perfection because momentum creates results, and results create motivation to keep going. One small imperfect step taken consistently will always outperform the person waiting for the perfect giant leap that never comes. Here's the reality: you will make mistakes, you will face setbacks, you will fail. But failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every setback teaches you something you couldn't have learned any other way. Every mistake sharpens your skills. Every fall builds your strength. The only true failure is refusing to start, refusing to act, refusing to move. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, or the perfect version of yourself, let me tell you, it doesn't exist. What exists is now. What exists is the choice in front of you to take action today, no matter how small, no matter how messy, no matter how imperfect. Because action beats perfection every single time. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide that enough is enough. Enough waiting, enough procrastinating, enough letting excuses run the show. Success doesn't just happen someday in the future. It begins the very moment you draw a line in the sand and say, "No more." From this day forward, things change. That single decision, that moment of absolute commitment, is what separates those who live with regret from those who rise with pride. Too many people live in the land of someday. They say, "Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll write that book. Someday I'll get in shape. Someday I'll chase my dream." But the problem with someday is that it never shows up on the calendar. There is no day of the week called someday. It's an illusion, a comfortable lie we tell ourselves so we don't have to face the discomfort of starting today. And the longer you live in someday, the further you drift from the life you know you're capable of living. The great turning points in life don't happen when everything aligns perfectly. They happen when a person decides to act despite imperfection. They happen when you stop negotiating with your excuses and start committing to your goals. That moment of decision is powerful because it doesn't just affect today. It creates a ripple effect that can transform your entire future. When you draw the line and declare, "This is the day I stop making excuses," you immediately shift your identity. You stop being someone who almost tries and you become someone who shows up, someone who acts, someone who follows through. Think about any major transformation story you've ever heard. The person who lost 100 pounds didn't start with a perfect fitness plan. They started the day they decided they were done living in a body that didn't reflect their true potential. The person who built a thriving business didn't wait until every condition was safe. They started the day they decided they were done working for excuses and ready to work for themselves. The person who turned their life around after years of setbacks didn't do it because someone handed them the perfect opportunity. They did it because they drew the line and said, "My past may have shaped me, but it will not define my future." That decision is where everything changes. Drawing the line is about making a commitment so strong that nothing can shake it. It means that when you wake up tired, you don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" You remind yourself, "I committed, so I follow through." It means when fear whispers in your ear, "What if you fail?" you answer, "I already decided. I'm in this for the long run." It means when obstacles appear, you don't use them as excuses to quit. You use them as reasons to grow stronger. The line you draw today becomes the foundation for the discipline, courage, and resilience you will need tomorrow. But here's the key: you must make the decision now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things calm down. Now? Because the truth is, the longer you delay, the stronger your excuses grow. Every day you wait is another day you reinforce the habit of hesitation. But the moment you say, "This is it, I'm done with excuses," you break that cycle. You create a new pattern. You set a new standard for your life. That's why successful people don't just set goals. They set standards. They decide what they will no longer tolerate from themselves, and then they rise to meet that standard every single day. Drawing the line is not about perfection. You will still stumble. You will still face setbacks. You will still have moments of doubt. But the difference is, when you've drawn the line, quitting is no longer an option. Excuses are no longer an option. Going back to your old ways is no longer an option. The decision has been made, the line has been drawn, and all that's left is to keep moving forward. Someday doesn't change lives, today does. Excuses don't build legacies, decisions do. Waiting doesn't create momentum, action does. So if you're serious about success, if you're serious about becoming the person you know you were meant to be, then stop waiting for a better day and make this the day. Draw the line right here, right now, and say, "No more excuses. My new life begins today." So here we are. We've uncovered the truth that excuses steal progress. We've learned that ownership creates success. We've seen the power of reframing excuses. We've realized that action always beats perfection. And we've declared that success begins the very moment you draw the line today. All of it points to one unshakable truth. Your future is not waiting on more time, more talent, or more resources. Your future is waiting on you. Excuses are easy, but they cost too much. Ownership is hard, but it pays in freedom. Reframing is challenging, but it turns fear into fuel. Action is messy, but it builds momentum. Drawing the line is uncomfortable, but it is the birthplace of transformation. Everything you want, everything you dream, everything you were created for. It lives on the other side of ending your excuses. So I challenge you, from this moment on, stop letting excuses narrate your story. Stop giving them the microphone in your mind. Take it back. Give your voice to courage, to commitment, to discipline, to resilience. Stand tall right now and declare, "This is my time, this is my season, this is my life, and I refuse to waste another moment hiding behind excuses." Because the truth is, your family is waiting for you to rise. Your community is waiting for you to lead. The world is waiting for you to step into your greatness. And no one else can do it for you. This is your responsibility, your opportunity, your destiny. So take the first step. Take the next step. Keep moving, keep building, keep believing. And when excuses come knocking, as they always will, you look them in the face and remind them you have no power here anymore. Success begins where excuses end. And today, that's exactly where your story begins.